Okay, let's start to put a track together now, and we're going to take a look at Session View. You can see on each track here we have a few clip slots, and these are where we're going to add in some musical clips. You can do that either by recording your own sounds from an external instrument or dragging and dropping samples or MIDI loops onto a MIDI track. Let's find an audio loop first of all. Going back over to our folder section, if we click in the search bar here, I'm going to type in drum loop, see what that brings up. Clicking on clips to find one. Now there's plenty here. I'm using Ableton Live Suite, which comes with plenty of pre-prepared drum loops. Let's try this one. I'm going to drag it onto the audio track. And as you can see, this is now highlighted and our little square stop button has changed to a triangle, which means it's ready to be played. So let's give it a try. So let's see what's happening here. This meter is showing the track volume, which is also replicated in the master channel. This is going to be a sum of all the volumes that we create. If we double click on the loop, it opens up this sample editor. So now we have the whole loop shown in this bracket here. At the top we have the loop brace, so pressing play, from left to right it will loop when it gets to the end. If we drag the right side of the loop brace, we can shorten the loop and lengthen it as needed. And if we just want the clip to play once, down here we can switch the loop brace on and off. We can also change the transposition, clicking on this dial, moving up and down in semitones. Clicking on the little orange button above it resets it back to 0. And that's the same for many other dials that you'll see. They all have these little triangles. For example, if we resize by clicking above the sample view and dragging down, it now brings into view what we had before. And you'll see the pan dial here. So this sends the audio signal to the left and right. Can also be centered by pressing on the orange button. Let's give ourselves a better view again by dragging that back up. The other thing I wanted to mention in here is this segment beats per minute. This is Ableton's best guess at the original file's beats per minute tempo. You'll notice though, our BPM at the top left here is 130. And with the warp function enabled, Ableton has given its best effort at stretching, either by speeding up or slowing it down, the clip to fit with our global tempo that we set up in the top left hand side. Let's try and find some other musical elements to go along with our drum loop. I'm going to find a MIDI clip now. Let's just turn down the drums volume whilst we search for this. The great thing about this folder structure is that we can preview clips by clicking on them. Right, now let's find some MIDI clips. So with clips highlighted in the search bar, let's try and find a bass loop. Plenty to choose from. And once again, regardless of their original file beats per minute, when we click and then press right arrow, you can hear that it's tried to put the bass line in time with our current global tempo. That's really, really handy when you're demoing clips. If, like now, the volume is too loud on the preview, we can adjust that over here. See the little headphones icon? If we drag that down and re-enable the preview of the loop, it's now on a much better comparative level with what we adjusted the drums to be. Okay, let's try and find something a bit more interesting than that. Nice. Alright, so we'll stop that there and either double click or click and drag in, and we're going to load it next to the first audio clip. Over to the right, what we have here are known as scenes, and each of these scenes can be launched by pressing on this little triangle here, and that will play any clip that's in line with it. Let's adjust our levels again. Okay, so already we're starting to build a groove. You may have noticed when I dropped this clip onto the MIDI track, it changed it automatically into an audio track. That's because the loop was actually originally an audio file. I had a look. I don't actually have any MIDI clips, so I'm going to show you how to make one from a MIDI instrument. So if we click on Instruments here, I have Ableton Live Suite, so you may not see all of these. I want to find a piano sound. Typing piano into the search. This only leaves ones that have piano in their title now. So using the arrow keys, right, let's take a look at electric, piano and keys. Again, it just gives us a little demonstration of the sound as we hover over it. Let's go for this. Click and drag anywhere into this area, and that's created a whole new MIDI track with the instrument in the device view down here. So we need some sound to go along with our audio loop of a drum kit and a bass line. You can see there's a little record button here now. If we click on that, that allows us to start playing in some music on a MIDI controller, or if you press the caps lock key on your keyboard, you can use actual keys on your computer keyboard to play notes in. If you can't play the piano at all or have no interest in trying, another way is to physically add in the notes one by one. To do that, double click on the space to create a blank MIDI clip, or let's undo that with Command Z and then hide this view. Or we can click on the area again and press Command Shift and M to create a blank MIDI clip. This now brings up a MIDI Notes editor, as opposed to the sample editor that we had on the first audio track. The MIDI Note area is where we can enter notes one by double clicking on the corresponding note on the keyboard here into various sections. I'm just double clicking, painting these randomly. If we press the B key, it changes the pointer to a little pencil tool, and now a single click adds a note, and a single click deletes it as well. Turning B off, or we can highlight multiple notes, clicking, dragging, and then press delete to delete, double clicking again to put them back on. Below the MIDI note editor, we have the MIDI velocity editor. And as we hover over each of these needles, there's going to be one below every single note that we create. We can click and drag and either decrease or increase the velocity of each note. You can see as I decrease it, the shade of the note gets lighter and it's darker as you increase. That's a good visual tool. We can also click, drag and highlight a few to change the velocities all at the same time. Okay, I'm going to highlight all of these notes and delete them. And we're going to try and play in, using this style, a few notes that will be in key with the track that we've created so far. So if I click on the scene play button here, this is going to play the bass line and the drums together. By default, we have a 1-bar loop. To increase that, we can change the length of our clip down here. Clicking on it, we can either write in, or what I like to do is click, hold, and then drag the mouse key, drag the mouse up. Let's make it a 4-bar loop. There we go. Now to play something in key, I need to work out what key that bass is playing. So to have a little experiment here, I'm going to switch on this MIDI editor preview here. Now every time I click a note on this keyboard, we're going to hear it played. Okay, to me it sounds like it's in D minor, so let's add in a few notes that are in the scale of D minor. I can now adjust these notes using the arrow keys, dragging them up and down to change the note, and left and right to change the time. Hovering the mouse over one of the ends increases the length of the note played, or decreases if you drag it left. Command and D makes a duplicate of the note you just clicked on. Holding down Option and dragging does the same thing. Okay, I'm happy with this 2-bar section here, so what I'm going to do is highlight it all. Let's turn off the preview for now so that it doesn't confuse us. Then I'm going to press Command and D. Oh, let's make sure the whole of the bar is covered. You see this highlighted area here. This highlighted area shows the length of the selection that I made. And I want to make sure it's complete 2 bars so that when I press Command and D, it repeats those 2 bars. So now we have a nice 4-bar loop of what I just played. Let's check it out. Adjust the volume. Okay, not bad. Now that we've got a little bit of music going on, we can start to make a structure of the song whilst remaining in session view. Let's double click on this to remove the MIDI editor out of our way. Now, playing with this, let's now start to create a bit of structure. So what we can do is maybe start with the bass line on its own. So I'm going to drag these other elements out of the way. Let's restart the scene. So now it's only playing the bass line. This could be like the introduction of the song. And it's just going to loop that round until we're ready to go to the next scene. So the next scene, let's introduce the drums and the bass. So we already have the bass playing. Command and D will duplicate that clip 1 down. So now if we press number 2, and then once again, let's duplicate the bass line again. Actually, let's delete that. We're going to have 1 bar where the lead line plays on its own, and then the other elements are going to come to join it. Okay, so whilst it's very basic, you can start to get the idea of how you can put a basic structure of a song together. We can start to tidy this up a bit now. Clicking on the track that you want to rename, Command and R, and we shall fill in the details. Let's do it for all of these. Okay, we can also resize these tracks. Hovering in between each track gives us a little brace here. Clicking, dragging, expands or shortens the size of it. This is great if we have things that are labelled in a longer way, or if we've just got less tracks like we have now, we can just see things a lot better. Now that we're fairly happy with what we've got, we can start to make small adjustments to improve the sound. We can change the volumes independently. We can switch some of them off if you want to just concentrate on 1 or 2. And if we do just want to concentrate on 1, we can use the solo button below. And we'll get into more detail about improving the sound when we get to the mixing section.